Live at the conclusion of another Ohio State win. This one wasn't as smooth as the previous two, but the Buckeyes did end the game with a win. And one thing was true all game long. Marshall had no answer for Quinshon Judkins and TreVeyon Henderson.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to another live postcast after another big Ohio State win during the non-conference slate. This one, a 49-14 win over Marshall. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens podcast. And this postcast is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We all knew going into this game that Marshall would bring a different test for Ohio State's defense. The air raid offense that they had, the Buckeyes had some issues with early in the game. Marshall scored on their first drive of the game, scored on their final drive in the second quarter as well. But one thing was true all game long. Marshall had no answer for Ohio State's RB1A and RB1B, or, there's no really a true backup. They're just guys, and they can start any game because they're just that good. Quinshon Judkins and TreVeyon Henderson came into this game motivated, and they both do what they always do this year: run hard, complement each other very well, and make it so hard for the the opposing defense to have an answer for him. Quinshon Judkins in this game, I was just kind of surprised in some of the same ways that Chip Kelly was, when Chip Kelly was talking about what he saw from Quinshon Judkins on film in the offseason. I knew what Judkins can do, and we knew what we've seen what he has done earlier this year. But seeing it against Marshall in the third game of the year, coming off of an off week, and seeing his vision, seeing his explosiveness, seeing his size, his speed, his skill set, the strength with the stiff arm on the way to another trip to pay dirt. This young man is a total package. And Quinshon Judkins, to me, is what an Ohio State running back should be. The all-around running backs at Ohio State throughout the years, they have traits that Judkins has, not just to be able to run outside, not just being able to run between the tackles, not just having speed, but he has the total package. And it's a luxury that Ohio State has him this year. A guy that was a former SEC Freshman of the Year and all SEC player down when he was at Ole Miss, now comes to Ohio State, and he is not shying away from sharing time with TreVeyon Henderson. He isn't shying away from the massive attention he's going to get at Ohio State. He's not shying away from any of that. What he is doing is rising to the occasion, stepping up to the plate, and showing everyone he has the goods to be a great back in Columbus. Let's not gloss over TreVeyon Henderson either. Both of these guys, Judkins and Henderson, both scored 2 times. They both had 2 rushing touchdowns. One of them was a long one. Judkins' long run was 86 yards. Henderson's long run of the game was 40 yards. But together, they totaled 249 yards, 20 carries, 4 touchdowns on the ground. That is 12.45 yards a pop. So basically what you're telling me was that when these guys touched the ball, they averaged a first down collectively. Individually, they both averaged over 12 yards a carry as well. Judkins 12.4, Henderson 12.7. This is what you wanted this year. We have been pushing for Ohio State to have an elite run game. We have been pushing Ryan Day to run the ball more. Now, yes, with Stroud, and the numbers will show you, Ohio State's pass-to-run ratio is a little bit different under Stroud than it was under Fields and than it was under Haskins. It's a luxury, and it's great that Ohio State's getting back to what Ohio State has been known for decades, having great running backs. And you got 2 of them. You don't have just one. You have 2 running backs that can get the job done that will start on any team in the country. And Ohio State has them right now in Columbus. And Marshall had no answer. Marshall did some things defensively that kind of, I guess, made Ohio State. I don't know what they were doing with Will Howard. Sometimes they were just Will Howard was having bad decisions. His numbers won't show that. 16 to 20, 80% completion percentage, 275 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 218.5 passer rating. All of those numbers are great. He was getting the job done. If Will Howard didn't make some boneheaded throws, one was an interception in the first quarter, one was a pass, or was a bad pass to Jelani Thurman. If he didn't make those, Will Howard could have been 18 of 20. I mean, if he just made some things a little bit better, not a lot better. If he worked on a few things, Will Howard's game wasn't horrible. Just talking about a few mistakes. This also was his highest passing completion percentage of the season. So a guy coming in was roughly a 60% passer in his career. Now has his highest completion percentage of the season with 80%. Y'all, I don't care if it's Marshall. I don't care if it's Western Michigan. I don't care if it's a Power 4 school. I don't care. If you go out there on the field and have an 80% completion percentage, you're doing something right. And Ohio State right now has just that. A quarterback that is doing a lot of things right, that is growing, even had out of the T formation a QB sneak for a touchdown. Also, I'm going to throw this in there really quickly. This isn't trivia, but some of you might want to look this up. How many times have you known Ohio State to use 5 tight ends in the first half of a game? Because I can't think of that. Normally, you may get the 12 personnel, and this year it would be Kaczmarek and Scott Jr. who are at the top of that list. You may get a third guy. You may get a fourth, as Ohio State did earlier this year in a goal line set. But they used 5 tight ends in one half. Yes, Kaczmarek played. I believe G. Scott Jr. got the start today. You also had Bennett Christian got some run. Jelani Thurman got some run. Patrick Gurd came into that T formation on the Will Howard touchdown run. So 5 tight ends, and I don't know, and Patrick Gurd has played, I believe, the least out of all 5 of those guys. But getting them in now and showing the T formation, I believe, for the first time since the spring game, the week before you start Big Ten play, that might be an alarm for everyone else saying, look, Ohio State shows the different things offensively. In the touchdown pass to Jeremiah Smith, I literally was sitting next to my wife and said, oh, that was the same play that ran a couple weeks ago for a touchdown. And then I said, oh, wait, no, because this time it was a fake toss and I don't believe he was actually going to toss the ball, but it was a fake play action toss to the left. The RPO where Cardinal Tate was in the flat to the right last time, he ran a different route, but Jeremiah Smith was still over the middle. It was a better defended pass, but still Jeremiah Smith caught that ball at his face mask and hit 22 miles per hour on his trip to pay dirt during this game. Will Howard did some great things. The receiver did some great things. Emeka Egbuka almost had a touchdown called back, and I know that would have been a bad thing for him, would have messed up with his mentals. But the biggest thing for me in this game offensively, Quinshon Judkins and TreVeyon Henderson, they complement each other very well. The numbers show how lethal they are. But when you watch that film, when you watch that tape, man, it's a luxury that Ohio State has against guys in Columbus. Quinshon Judkins transferring in, it's almost unheard of that a guy that did that down there in the SEC comes up to the Big Ten and is playing even better than advertised. That's what Ohio State has right now, and that's what they got from Henderson and Judkins. Both guys right now are playing better than advertised through the first 3 games of the season. Watch out, Michigan State. Watch out, Iowa. Watch out, Oregon. Y'all are next up on the schedule, and y'all better be ready for the law firm of Judkins and Henderson because they might go off when the Buckeyes play one of those opponents over the next 3 weeks. One thing that I noticed in this game was just like Henderson and Judkins, and their play was so much fun to watch. One thing that wasn't fun to watch but was very clear was some of these self-inflicted wounds that Ohio State had in this game. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusion apply. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every day. And thank you for tapping in to this Locked On Buckeyes postcast after Ohio State's 49-14 win over Marshall, a team that posed a different threat to Ohio State offensively, a different threat to Ohio State defensively. And in this game, there were some self-inflicted wounds. We'll talk about special teams later because that was just bad, really, really bad. But the first one I want to dive into is Will Howard. A deep ball pass to Jeremiah Smith on the right sideline, and everyone all season and in the offseason, people were wondering and questioning how Will Howard will do throwing the deep ball. Would it be a good asset? Would it be a strength? Would he work on it? Would it still be a weakness? He hasn't really had to do it much, so I'm going to be curious to see what he does during Big Ten play. If the Buckeyes are forced to make that throw a little bit more, does he show improvement there? But in that throw, an underthrown ball, a route that even Joe Klatt said, hey, maybe Jeremiah Smith did not run and go as hard as normal. But even if he did or did not, doesn't matter. It was a bad throw. And the DB, the corner, read that ball perfectly. It's one of those plays that the defender looked like he was the receiver. We've all seen that play every now and then where the guy that is defending any guy on the offense looks like the guy's supposed to be the ball's supposed to be thrown to him. That's what it appeared like in this game, at least on that play. And Will Howard, I believe it was his first completion of the game. He threw most of it. I think it was 13 of 15 or 11 of 13. It was something on the lines of this guy, Will Howard was just being consistent, but some of the issues were avoidable. That was one of them. That was one of these self-inflicted wounds. The refs didn't help. I don't normally talk about refs during shows, but it was very clear in this game. The referees were not helping anyone, including themselves, because they were making bad call after bad call after bad call, even to the point that Ryan Day got a unsportsmanlike conduct call, and I'm sitting here thinking, okay, Ryan Day, I'm not really upset with you for that. I get why you're so upset. This is in the third quarter, and in a time when Ryan Day could have backed off, could have not tried to go as hard in the paint, could have said, oh, we're up big, I don't need to do this. But no, Ryan Day is showing everybody he is going to go all out for his team every single day, every single second. Doesn't matter if you're up by 30 or if you're down 10. He's going to go hard, and that kind of fire will hopefully it will trickle over to the guys on the team, and they'll go harder for you as well. Because at the time, Ohio State could have scored more points in this game. I know that I mentioned that Ohio State was a team that in this game 50 plus was where I was leaning the entire time, and didn't happen, but it still could have. Even though it didn't happen, it could have, and that could have caused some of the frustration that Ryan Day had. And I know Ryan Day, just like us, was very frustrated with some of the things that the special teams units, no, it's not the units. A couple guys on special teams did. Let's just go a little bit further. Because during the week, Ryan Day was talking about, hey, on special teams, ball security is big, it's key, it's huge. And he said, hey, maybe Brandon Ennis will return punts and kickoffs. What did we find? Ball security was an issue because Brandon Ennis muffed a punt. Now, luckily for him, it was called back. There was a flag thrown, so the ball was kicked again. He caught it. He caught the ball with the fair catch before he caught the ball, so he was safe there. I kind of miss the old school halo rule where you couldn't be within 3 yards of the returner, because there was a Marshall defender that was literally right by his ear hole, it seemed like, right before he caught the ball. And there was a time where that halo protected you as a returner. Even with the fair catch, guys couldn't really get inside of that bubble. And I'm thinking, as I'm watching, I'm like, hey, I know y'all want to protect safety, and I understand, like, if I'm a guy on the punt team, I'm trying to get down there to distract the guy who called a fair catch. I want to get as close as possible. Is that really the best to protect a guy who's a returner? I don't know. hop into the chat. Let us know. Do you think that they should rule and give the guy that's a returner on a punt a little bit more of a bubble, a little bit of a bubble before he can be touched? Because I don't know, man. I mean, homie looked like he was right by his ear hole. One thing that was right by Jaden Fielding's ear hole was Ryan Day. Because as a kicker, you got a few jobs, but one of them is on a kickoff, keep the ball in bounds. And between the sidelines. If it goes outside the back of the end zone, cool. Ain't no issues. Ain't nobody complaining. It goes out the side of the end zone. Ain't nobody complaining. But inside the field of play, goal line to where you kick that ball out on the 35, keep the ball in the field of play. But what do we find? Not one, pulling a little LeBron James here, not two, but 3 times in a row, Jaden Fielding kicked that bad boy out of bounds. Oh, my goodness. I normally don't talk special teams on here, and I put out tweets about 3 in a row, and come on, man. And people they saw it and commenting, and I'm like, cool, that's great, but you got one job, man. That's what just happened in the case. That should not happen. Now, Austin Snyder came in, and many of you had not known who Austin Snyder was, because I ain't gonna lie to you, I hadn't heard of the guy. But one thing that I knew about when Austin Snyder came in was, hey, Jaden Fielding may have lost his job, because Ryan Day, Ohio State, cannot put up with that happening again. Big Ten play, Michigan State is nowhere near the caliber of Ohio State. No, Iowa's better. Oregon, that still is going to be the toughest test of the first half of the season, and maybe the toughest test on the field all year long. No, Michigan is not what Michigan was. Penn State, Happy Valley is going to be a tough place to play. I still think Oregon is going to be the most talented team Ohio State plays this year. You don't want to go into Oregon in that game at Austin Stadium with a kicker that can't kick the ball inside the lines. You just don't want to do that. You also don't want to have the opposing offense on the field in the first half for 21-plus minutes, where Ohio State was only on the field in the first half for 8 minutes and 13 seconds. That's what happened. Time of possession difference between Marshall and Ohio State. Marshall had the ball in the first half for 21 minutes and 47 seconds. Ohio State for 8 minutes and 13 seconds. The difference in total yards, Marshall had more first half yards than either Western Michigan or Akron had in the entire game when those teams played Ohio State. So in the first half, you knew air raid. You knew that there were going to be some different things happening. You knew, hey, we need to try to create some type of pass rush. We need to try to do X, Y, and Z so Marshall doesn't get hot. Stone Earl did some good things before he was knocked out of the game later in the second half. Marshall had 46 total plays in the first half, 4.4 yards a play. So for the first touchdown, that's kind of what, if a team of this caliber is going to score, it is going to come in. It's supposed to come on the first drive of the game. Now, it's going to be demoralizing the way that it happens, but that is scripted. And so you're trying to make sure your script is so crystal clear and so crisp that you guys simply go right down the field and score. That's what the plan is supposed to be. However, that's what for the opposing team. Now, if you're Ohio State's defense, you know they got a script. You know you might be able to guess some type of plays that they are going to run. You also know that you're fresh, the freshest you'll be all game, and that shouldn't happen at all. But then when you can't get off the field on third down, when the final seconds, Marshall gets the ball in their own 30, and with a minute, basically a minute and a half left in the half, and you let them score in the final seconds of the half, that shouldn't happen either. So first drive of the game, Ohio State just couldn't get things right. Second half, into the first half, Ohio State just allowed to run a 2-minute drill. That these are like some mental errors. But I got something as well that I kind of have been teetering back and forth about. Ohio State played quite a few backups in the first half in a time where the ones needed those reps. Was that something that maybe in that time period that shouldn't have happened, or it should have? This isn't questioning how talented Ohio State's players are, but we all know over the next few weeks, Ohio State's players will be playing all 4 quarters. And you know your stamina when you only play a half or you play 3.5 quarters. When you're playing 4 quarters, that extra quarter and a half, hey man, you might feel winded for the first time, or you had 2 games in a row, you might feel more winded than normal. So this might have been a test where Ohio State said, "Oh, we're seeing things differently, some different things that we normally see. Maybe we should keep our ones on the field." It's just a thought. There were some self-inflicted wounds, and some of them could have been avoided because they're self-inflicted. Kicking the ball in bounds, you know the job. Not up for the punt, and they slip a little bit, but that's still a part of your job description. Ohio State allowed Marshall to score 2 first-half touchdowns. Something tells me that could have been avoided. Now, something we don't do around here all the time is dive into players of the game. But let's start a new trend this week as we have a player of the game on offense and on defense, and that's coming at you next. This postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. All the action happens at FanDuel.com, and make sure you download America's #1 sports book. Thank you all for tapping into this live postcast after Ohio State's 49-14 win over Marshall. The Thundering Herd had a game plan that was working pretty well in the first half. They totaled 264 total yards in the entire game, which is more than I thought they would actually have in the game. 139 passing yards, 125 yards on the ground. Ohio State had a whopping 569 total yards, 289 through the air, 280 on the ground. That's a pretty good comparison and even flow of the pass and the run. Devin Brown got in for a little bit, 2 for 6, 14 yards, 52.9% passer rating. That's really irrelevant because he didn't really get much time on the field. But I'm really pleased with Ohio State in this game. Got quite a few guys to catch the ball. Quite a few guys ran the ball this day. Devin Brown, 1 carry for 3 yards. James Peoples in a backup role, 6 for 31, 5.2 yards a pop. Emeka Egbuka, 5 catches for 117. Carnell Tate, 4 for 64. Smith had 3 catches. Judkins had 2, and then the rest of these guys had 1. David Adolph, Will Kazmarek, Brandon Ennis, and Jelani Thurman. Among all those guys, the one guy to me that was the player of the game for the offense, it's probably pretty obvious. We talked about him earlier in this show. It is Quinshon Judkins, 14 carries, 173 yards, rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He was the man on the ground. And I could have done touches, but I wanted to highlight in this graphic on the YouTube. Also, shout out to the graphics team over at the Locked On Podcast Network putting these graphics together. Makes my job a whole lot easier and also makes it very crystal clear for people like yourself to enjoy the show with a little more graphics for your enjoyment. Quinshon Judkins was just a smooth operator, man. The 86-yard touchdown run and all the other yards in between. He was a man on a mission. And I've been saying it all offseason. He is a guy that is worthy to be RB1 in Columbus. And I still think the best all-around running back at Columbus is Quinshon Judkins. And coming out through an off week, some guys might be rusty. Some guys might need a few reps a few touches to get going. He didn't need that. No. All he needed was the ball. Put the ball right in my chest and let me tote that thing through the line of scrimmage and let's see what I can do. And what he did was go off. The Thundering Herd had no answer. The first offensive player of the game for the season, because this is week game number 3, first time this year we're doing this, is Quinshon Judkins. And then on the defensive side of the ball, this is one that was pretty easy. What do you do with the intangibles? Outside of tackles, what is your presence? What are some things you do to disrupt things? Now, some of the things you do on defense don't show up on the stat sheet. That's the same way on offense. But some of the things you do, a lot of the things you do on defense don't show up in the stat sheet. But this consistent stat sheet stuffer did a lot of things on Saturday afternoon in the shoe that showed up in the stat sheet. It is Lathan Ransom, 8 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 forced fumble that for some reason I have no idea what the refs were looking at when saying, oh, this may have been Ohio State's ball. Myself, probably you, we all probably agreed that that was not going to be Ohio State's ball. It was going to go to the Thundering Herd. They were going to keep the ball. But man, let's look at that one more time. And the picture that we chose here, I mean, it's very clear that he is a guy always around the ball. And I think it's a Stone Earl with the ball here in the picture. Stone Earl knew when he saw Lathan Ransom around him, he ain't going nowhere. He is not going to do all that. Lathan Ransom had a good start to the game, which helped later on in the game. But this is what you want. In the broadcast, Joel Klatt discussed Caleb Downs, him transferring over, the all-SEC player, former SEC Freshman of the Year, and about what Downs did at Alabama last year and what he's doing right now at Ohio State. Sometimes I think what gets lost in conversation is Lathan Ransom's presence and Lathan Ransom's experience and how good of a player that he is, because you can't, like, Caleb Downs is great. Lathan Ransom is too. And Lathan Ransom is always around the ball, and he's been around for a long time. If it wasn't for that season-ending injury a year ago, I don't know if Lathan Ransom comes back to Ohio State or stays at Ohio State, because he could have had every reason to go off to the NFL, get his dollars and cents, and start his professional career. No more class. You're a pro. You're not in the everyday hustle and bustle of college. You're doing things at the NFL level. You got more free time. You control a lot. You control your time outside of the facility. NFL lifestyle sounds pretty good, but there's unfinished business in Columbus, and Lathan Ransom had that same mindset. Y'all, we got unfinished business, and with us having unfinished business, I want to stick around. He does. Lathan Ransom does. Let's get the right name. Lathan Ransom does to finish what he started. Get those gold pants, get a conference championship ring, and I think he actually already has one, get another one, and get a national championship ring, something he unfortunately does not have yet. 49-14 win. My final thoughts about this game is that this was a great way for Ohio State to end their 9-conference slate. Scoring 49 points is huge. Holding your opponent to only 14 points, allowing the opposition to score a touchdown until game number 3. That's great. So there's a lot of positives here. But going into conference play, Ohio State needed to be tested in a certain way. Needed to see a different type of offense, and the defense needed to do some things and react in real time in ways that they had not been forced to previously. So going into the game against Michigan State and then Iowa after that and then Oregon after that, there's an off week. So if you just focus on the next 3 games, you can look at Ohio State's schedule, look at it in quarters, 3, 3, 3, and 3. We have finished the first quarter of Ohio State's schedule. We have a good feeling about what they are, what they can be. Now we're going to find out what Ohio State is. We know what Ohio State can be so far through the first quarter of the year. In the next quarter of the season, we're going to find out what Ohio State is during conference play. Yeah, I think Ohio State's going to win next week against Iowa, and I have not changed my offseason prediction about the Buckeyes matchup with the Ducks on October 12th. That may happen game week, but it hasn't happened yet. But for that to happen, Ohio State has to learn from the lessons they learned today. Yeah, you won big. That's great. That's very positive. There's a lot of things the Buckeyes, Ryan Day, the other coaches and players can learn from their blowout win of Marshall that had a lot of questionable and head-scratching moments in it. Thank you for making this postcast a part of your College Football Saturday. For your second listen during this College Football Saturday, find Locked On College Football, from NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors. Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. Find Locked On College Football on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. Follow the show on Twitter at LO Buckeyes. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. Buckeye fans, Buckeyes win big, close out their non-conference slate undefeated, 3-0. And what's the best thing about being 3-0? a chance to go 4-0. We'll see you all on Monday.